이스라엘의 젊은이들은 고등학교를 졸업하면 남자는 3년, 여자는 2년 누구나 예외 없이 무조건 병역의 의무를 감당하기 위해서 군대를 간다고 하죠. 군대를 제대한 이후에는 누구나 할 것 없이 또 외국으로 해외로 여행을 떠나는 것이 그들의 전통이고 또 문화라고 합니다. 그렇게 외국에 나간 이스라엘의 젊은이들에게 숙소를 제공하고 음식을 대접하면서 동시에 그들에게 예슈아의 복음을 전하는 그런 아주 특별한 사역을 감당하고 있는 단체가 있습니다. HIT, 호스트 이스라엘 트래블러라고 하는 단체인데요. 그 단체의 대표이신 오므리 야코보비치 씨께서 저희 한국을 방문하셨고 또 우리 브레드 TV 스튜디오를 찾아와 주셨습니다. 도대체 이스라엘의 젊은이들에게 어떤 식으로 복음을 전하고 또 그들의 복음을 전해 들은 뒤에 어떻게 예수를 받아들이고 또 반응을 보이는지 오늘 아주 특별하고 특이한 그런 사역에 대한 이야기를 좀 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 어서 오십시오. 고맙습니다. 반갑습니다.
샬롬.
HIT, 제가 조금 전에 잠깐 설명하긴 했지만 좀 자세하게 설명을 해 주시죠.
HIT, Hosting Israeli Travelers, it's a network I started in New Zealand many years ago. That was back in February 2000. I did a tour with somebody you actually know because I saw you interviewed him, Jacob Damkani. We did a tour in New Zealand. I was a very young believer, only 3 years a believer. But just a few days before the tour, I had a thought to ask if people would like to host Israelis in their homes. I went to pick Jacob up from the airport for the tour, and I shared the thought with him. He got very excited. He said, Omri, this is from God. And at the end of each meeting, we had a 1-month tour in New Zealand in February 2000. At the end of each meeting, we asked if people would like to host Israelis. And at the end of each meeting, people would put down their names. And at the end of the tour, we had about 350 names of people, evangelical Christians, people who believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, people who believe in the God of Israel, people that believe that God has not forsaken his people which he foreknew, the Jews, and people that understand that part of the way for them to show their love and support and friendship to the Jewish people is by standing with them and demonstrating that in the most practical way possible through the gift of hospitality. So the network has been going on now for 18 and a half years. The first 14 years was only in New Zealand. We just worked in New Zealand. But in the last 4 years, the network has gone internationally. So that's what I do. In the last 3 years, I travel all over the world and I try to set up the hosting network in various countries.
그러면 다른 나라에도 그렇게 그 숙소를 마련하게 되면은 본인이 직접 하시는 겁니까? 아니면 누구를 선정하시는 겁니까? 그리고 또 선정할 때는 어떤 기준이 있습니까?
Well, first, everyone that is interested to show love and mercy and support and friendship, not just Christian people, everyone that wants to host Israelis in their homes through us is welcome to do it. Again, God said to Abraham, I will bless everyone that bless you. So everyone is invited to come and take part. But of course, what we're targeting, when I go around the world, when I travel, I speak to Christian groups and the main emphasis is from the scriptures about the necessity to bring the gospel back to the Jewish people. So our aim is that the hosting will not be used just for hosting, but actually to draw the Israelis closer to Messiah. So I would probably say that maybe 99% of the hosts on our network are evangelical Christians or Messianic Gentiles, Jews.
제가 조금 전에도 그 이스라엘의 젊은이들이 군대를 제대한 뒤에 군대에서 받은 그런 스트레스를 풀기 위해서 여행을 가는 것이 전통이 되었다 이렇게 설명을 했는데 실제로 이스라엘의 그 젊은이들이 외국 여행을 가서 그 모든 스트레스를 풀어내야 할 만큼 군대 생활이 많이 힘들죠. 본인도 군대 생활을 하셨을 텐데 어느 정도입니까?
I think it started in maybe the early 1980s. People would start traveling after their military service. Today it just became the thing to do. In Europe, at least, I would suspect Korea would probably be the same. People finish high school, next thing they start some kind of an apprenticeship or they go to university. In Israel, you don't have to think about that because you have the army. You have, it's compulsory, 2 years for women, 3 years for men. But when you finish your military service, you're now encountered with a big question: what is it that I'm going to do in my life? And normally, today, the thing to do, I don't necessarily think it's because it's so stressful in the Israeli army that you can't cope unless you go travel. I don't think it's to that level. To some, maybe. But it's just, as with a progression of things, it just became the thing to do. Before you start your real lives, before you go to university, get your degree, start a business, a job, get married, start a family, and so forth, you take a few months off, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even a year, and you go and travel around the world. So it's just the thing to do. Most of the Israelis after the army, they travel into the cheap countries, of course, which will be Southeast Asia and South America. But many of them also will go to Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, we have people, probably 90% of the Israelis using our network in New Zealand. They are after their military service, 20, 25-year-old. But I suspect that as we branch the hosting network internationally, more and more Israelis of all ages, that can be people in their honeymoon, in their late 20s, early 30s, families, 2, 3, 4 kids, mid-30s to mid-40s, and semi-retired people in their mid-50s, and even retired people in their mid-60s and 70s. That's the opportunity for us to also introduce them to Messiah, to people who believe.
어떻게 유대인으로서 예수와를 만나게 됐는지 좀 시간 되는 대로 좀 자세하게 좀 이야기를 해주실 수 있겠습니까?
I finished my military service more than 25 years ago now. This was back in November 1992. And finishing my military service, I had no idea at all what it was that I wanted to do in my life. And at some point, I bought myself a ticket around the world. And my ticket went from Israel to Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, and from New Zealand through the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Tonga, Hawaii, to the US and back to Israel. And on the 10th of June, 1997, which is my birthday, on my 27th birthday, I had a flight from Melbourne, Australia, to Christchurch, New Zealand. And about 5-6 weeks later, I found myself in a small town in the North Island, in the north part of the North Island of New Zealand. The name of the town is Paihia. It's a very small town. Maybe only 5,000 people live there. But very beautiful town, very touristic town in the summer. But when I got there in early August 97, August in the southern hemisphere, that's the middle of winter. So hardly any tourists, nobody from Israel. But it was in that town, at the hostel where I stayed, that's where I came to faith in Messiah. The hostel was run by a Gentile woman, a non-Jewish woman. This woman was Dutch, and this woman, she shared the gospel with me. But thankfully, thank God, she never talked to me about Christianity, and thank God she never talked to me about Jesus either. So if you or the audience asking yourself what kind of gospel did she give you, well, she didn't talk to me about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. She talked to me about the God of Israel. She talked to me about the promised Jewish Messiah that was foretold by the Hebrew prophets in the Hebrew scriptures. And I understood instinctively inside, if what she's telling me, if this is the truth, maybe this is what I've been searching for all my life.
그렇게 해서 이제 만난 예수님, 뉴질랜드의 그 크라이스트 처치에서 여행 오는 유대인들에게 어떻게 예수와를 전하고 또 예수와를 전해들은 그 유대인의 그 이스라엘의 젊은이들 반응은 좀 어떻습니까?
We have, in New Zealand alone, we have at the moment about 750 different hosts. So I guess that everyone will be a little bit different. You know, we have hosts of all different ages and backgrounds. That's just in New Zealand. Now that we go around the world, it's even people from other nations. But it's very, very important in my presentations. I always talk about the necessity to bring the gospel to the Jews. So the first thing I try to show the Gentiles, it's that it's their call to bring us the gospel. But it doesn't mean that it's your job to show us Isaiah 52, 53 or Psalm 22 or to tell us necessarily that Jesus is the Messiah. I believe that the most important thing, or the call of the Gentiles in regard to the Jews, is actually recorded in Romans 11:11. And if we really understand what it really says, Paul is talking and he's saying, salvation has come to the Gentiles, so that's you, the non-Jewish people. Salvation has come to the Gentiles to provoke them, speaking of the Jews, to jealousy. And the way for the Gentiles to provoke us to jealousy is to let us know that no matter what, you are our friends. And this is where we find the hosting network so powerful. Because what better way can anyone, let alone a Gentile with a Jew, can anyone really show their love and support and friendship to anyone than by the opening of their hearts, of their homes, saying, in my home, you're always welcome. And especially it's very strong testimony from Gentiles to Jews, because we the Jews are being hated and persecuted even to this day all over the world. And that gets the Israelis thinking, because they would go like, what makes you so different? How come the whole world is against us? How come the whole world is persecuting us? Why are you trying to bless us? What makes you different? And what we find is this, is the more fun that the Israelis have with their hosts, the more they enjoy them, the more they like them, the more they trust them, the more the opportunities come for our hosts to actually share with the Israelis about the Messiah. Because one thing with the Israelis, they are very talkative, they're not shy, they'll ask, why are you hosting us? And that will give you a wonderful opportunity to share with you. It's not your job. This is an extremely important part to understand with sharing the gospel with the Jews. It's not your job as Gentiles to convince us, the Jews, that God exists or that Yeshua, Jesus, is the Messiah. That's not your job. That's God's job, and God can do His job. Your job, again, is Romans 11:11, to provoke us to jealousy. Even if you don't speak the language, even if you don't know much about the Jewish culture, even if you've never been to Israel, you don't know about the geography and the topography, you see all these things. If you don't know the prophecies about the Messiah, how they've been fulfilled in Yeshua, all these things, if you know, they will be a tremendous help. But you know what? To be a missionary to the Jews, you don't have to have any of these. All you need to have is a desire, a hard desire, to bless the Jewish people with the greatest blessing you have is their Messiah dwelling in you.
우리 오므리 씨께서 한국을 와서 보시니까 이스라엘 사람들, 유대인들 이 한국에 오면 참 좋아하겠다 이런 생각이 드시나요?
Every country has something different to offer. It can be scenery-wise, it can be culturally-wise, it can be, I think that in Asia, and Korea is part of Asia, I think one of the things that is different than travel in Europe, for instance, is the culture. Even just the types of food you eat with chopsticks and things, you know what I mean? So I think that everything cultural will be quite interesting for the Israelis to see, to observe, and that would be an interest to them because it would be very, very different. Europe is the same, of course, different languages, but the culture is the same. I think that I'm not quite sure about the scenery, what you have in Korea to offer, but I'm sure that culturally wise, that's definitely would be something that many Israelis would find interesting.
그럼 만약에 이제 한국에 있는 분들 중에 우리 오므리 씨하고 이렇게 네트워크가 돼서 우리도 좀 이스라엘의 젊은이들, 유대인들을 손님으로 받아들이고 그분들에게 또 이렇게 복음을 전하고 싶다. 이런 마음을 갖게 되신 분들은 그럼 어떻게 하면 우리 오므리 씨하고 네트워크가 될 수 있을까요?
Well, the way it works is like this. In the application forms online, there's different questions about yourself, about your home, and about your hosting arrangements. If you're in the city, if you're on a farm, how many people you can host? 2 or 3, maybe 4, maybe 6. How long are you happy to host? Just 1 or 2 nights? You're happy for them to stay for up to a week? Maybe keep it open. Do you have internet or laundry? Are you near tourist attractions or a supermarket or bus stop? Or just as much information. Think about yourself when you go and travel, what kind of things you would like to know, okay? About the place, about how to get there, how to... So we put all this information on our website. I think the more specific you are about yourself, the more information you give. If you also, there's room to put photos of yourselves. If you have a wife and kids and your home, the bedroom, the kitchen, the living, people like to see that today. And it also makes the website more professional. But by the way, also, if you host with us, it doesn't mean you have to host everyone at any time. So it's always to our host discretion to take or refuse guests. If you get 10 requests for accommodation a year and you can only comply with once, we think it's great. So still join our host. It's always up to our host. Also, if you host with us, it doesn't mean that you have to entertain your visitors throughout the day. You don't have to pick them up from the airport or from the bus station. You don't have to take them on day trips in the city. You don't have to cook for them or to take them to restaurants. You don't have to provide them food. You don't have to give them internet or laundry. If you want, you can, but it's not required. We only ask our host to provide their Israeli visitors with 3 basic things. First is a bed or a couch, a fold-out couch, a mattress on the floor, that's also good. And even in the summer, maybe not so much in the cities, but in the countryside, maybe a place even to put a tent or park with a camper van. Some may travel with a camper van, sleeping in a camper van. And that would be the first thing. Second would be toilet and showers that they can use. And the third thing will be a kitchen where they can cook. And it doesn't have to be a kosher kitchen. And that's it. Please let us know when they come, take photos with them. We have a Facebook group, so that helps us to promote the network. Many of the people that will join our hosting network, this is one of the things that the Israelis, they're so overwhelmed with love and friendship that they say to their hosts, when you come to Israel, you now must come and stay with us. So that's also an exciting thing that, just can come up as a result of hosting. But overall, it's just a wonderful, I think it's safe to say that 90% of the Israelis enjoy 90% of their hosts and vice versa. Overall, it's just a wonderful experience for both.
오늘 귀한 시간 내주시고 또 귀한 이야기 나눠주셔서 고맙습니다. 고맙습니다.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.